Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to a special edition of Ask the Expert. I am Dr. Andrea Pennington, the founder and managing director of Make Your Mark Global, and I'm thrilled that we are publishing the top 10 traits of highly resilient people. As a medical doctor, I have seen burnout from both sides. I've experienced it and I've treated it with my patients. And over the years, working with people who've had all sorts of health conditions, physical health, emotional health, addictions, trauma, there have been certain people who've had certain traits that allow them to recover and rebound and even thrive after illnesses, accidents, injuries, and surgeries. And so this book is a compilation of those top 10 traits. Also included are the personal stories of people who have recovered from a number of things, from burnout to cancer to infections to loss and trauma. And today I have the good pleasure of bringing you an interview that I did recently with Bruce Cryer. He's one of the contributing authors. He's presented at some of our conferences, and he is a lover of all things related to the heart and healing. But what's really cool is that Bruce has also had a career in musical theater, biotech, personal development, executive coaching, and he began, as he'll share in this interview, as a singer and actor on Broadway. But the thing that most people are now aware of Bruce for is that he was the co-creator of the acclaimed HeartMath system and was even serving as the CEO. He's led with leaders at Stanford University, Mayo Clinic, Kaiser, NASA, so many other public and private organizations on 4 continents. He's also an author of a book called From Chaos to Coherence, and he himself is what I call a poster child for resilience. He had a 2-year health crisis that really forced him to focus on himself and take all that he had learned at HeartMath and beyond and on his yoga mat to really heal himself. But it also caused him to tap back into the creativity that started his life off as a performer. So I hope that you will enjoy this interview, and I hope that you will get your copy of the book, The Top 10 Traits of Highly Resilient People. Bruce Cryer, once again, always a pleasure to connect with you. Thank you for joining me for this special edition of Ask the Author.
Well, it's delightful always to be with you and to be participating in this chat today. Looking forward to it.
Well, I'm so grateful that you've decided to contribute a chapter to this book, The Top 10 Traits of Highly Resilient People. You could definitely be listed in the dictionary next to the word resilient. You know, move over, Energizer Bunny. Here's Bruce Cryer.
Thank you, and I have the scars to prove it.
Yeah, like all over. My goodness. Well, you definitely have come through a lot, and I'm not going to give a lot of your story away. Of course, we want people to read the chapter, but as you know, one of the things I really wanted with this book is I wanted people to be able to pick up the book if they were suffering or they wanted to give it to a loved one who was going through a major struggle or a burnout, and I wanted them to be able to find inspiration, to recognize one of these 10 traits is already there and active, so they could sort of perk it up and maybe discover ways to tap into the others. And it's funny because your chapter is like hitting all 10 of the resilience traits. And I think you maybe have a little bit of an advantage. As I mentioned, your work at HeartMath has helped so many of us, physicians and other healthcare practitioners and coaches around the world, to help people understand the power of the heart and the mind-body connection. But I think because you have been one of the co-creators of the HeartMath system, and you helped in the launch of it nearly 30 years ago, and you've been practicing it all along, all these various meditations and then training and teaching on it. So in other words, you have been living it, which has helped you build up your own resilience, don't you think?
Absolutely. And that thought came to me at several points in this particular 2-year period where my resilience was tested big time. And it did occur to me, especially in the aftermath of it, that wow, did I have an advantage? Had I not, at the point when this all started, my health issues started, which was about 10 years ago, I was nearly 20 years into the creation, the practice, the teaching of HeartMath. And I thought, wow, what if I had not had all that time teaching on resilience, practicing tools for it, filling my bucket back up on a daily basis? Because many times during that journey, people would say to me after I'd had a surgery or a procedure or something was significant was happening, and their response when they see me coming out of the hospital was, "Wow, you're looking so much better than I was expecting." And it was sort of this odd compliment, like, "Okay, how bad did you think I was going to look?" Because I don't feel exactly chipper at this moment, but the message was pretty consistent. You should be looking worse considering what you've been going through. And after I heard that enough times, and from especially from doctors and nurses who would say, "Wow, you're really healing quickly. You're doing really well." I thought, well, okay, I have had a significant advantage, and I continued to use the HeartMath tools while this all was going on too. Yeah.
Yeah, so just to give a bit of perspective, and again, you can read all of this in Bruce's chapter about Renaissance Human. It's like the 2.0 version of Bruce. You came through some pretty devastating, like personal experiences, the loss of your mother. You had your own physical health challenge with bladder cancer, then an infection following some of these procedures that led you to then need double hip replacement. So it's like wave after wave or smack after smack. It's not like a small thing that you recovered from. It's like every time you were getting better, there was yet another thing to deal with, right?
Absolutely. And when the hip started to go while I was being treated for the staph infection in my blood, and I was no longer able to walk downstairs without my legs shaking, and I thought, I have become an 85-year-old man. This is not okay. No part of this is okay in this scenario. And when I finally got through it, a year or so later, after the hip surgery and after I was starting to rebuild and recharge, I thought the optimistic, sunny side of me said, "You've gone through aging. You won't have to go through that again." I went through a lot of old age diseases all at one time. So, okay, good. Now I can just reverse aging, and now I'll be, heading for 39. That's the next target.
And did you experience depression at all at any of those stages? I mean, uh, I'll just be honest. I just came through being sick, and it was. I usually don't get sick. If I get sick, it's like 24 hours where I can just like hibernate, like go into the bed, 48 hours max, and I'm great. But I was really under the weather for a few days. And
Mm.
by like day 3, I
Mm.
was shocked at how my mindset, as quote unquote positive as I am, I started really feeling like, oh my gosh, this is such a dark, dreary time. So I can't imagine going through what you went through month after month and procedure after procedure. Did you encounter any dark thoughts?
Well, yes, is the quick answer. Dark in the sense of despair, in the sense of that sense that I just mentioned a minute ago of I'm becoming a very old person, and this is not. There's nothing about this that's okay. I'm a young, youthful, vital guy. I always have been, and this is not okay. That was very discouraging, very depressing. Whether I became clinically depressed, probably not, but it felt like many dark nights of the soul. And then my mother's passing was yet another phase of, even though she had been going through many year decline with Alzheimer's, and we had sort of had to say goodbye already because she had lost contact with who we were for quite a while. It's been several years since she had recognized anyone. Still, there was the finality of your
Yeah.
mother's really gone now. So there was a lot of self-reflection, a lot of soul searching of what's the deeper message here that I can
Mm.
take from all of this. When I finally turned the corner and realized that I will be okay, and
Mm.
the tests on the cancer were consistently positive, and the staph infections finally went away, and I got this amazing hip doctor. He was a pretty hip doctor. He was like a cheerleader and super enthusiastic, like, you're going to be great. And later he told me I was the poster child of his practice because I was doing so well. And so there was this kind of buoyancy coming forward in me, and again, finally. But and I was able to kind of see the whole experience through very different eyes. But it definitely was very much a soul-searching time. And part of it, of course, led me to the other significant part of this journey led me to the decision to step down as CEO of HeartMath, which I was during all of this period, which was a huge, one of the most challenging parts of this whole 2 years. And while I remain very connected to HeartMath still 8 years later, as you know, and teach it constantly and share it all the time, to consider even stepping away from the management role was also huge. So there were a lot of times I had to dig in to find other sources of inspiration and positivity, because I knew I couldn't let myself go down that tube for long. When I first learned that it was definitely cancer, and when the doctor said, this is definitely cancer, we know it is based on a number of factors, my first response to him was, well, I know I will have a story to tell. And he kind of laughed and said, that's a good attitude. And I said, well, I'm fairly clear there's a fork in the road right now. And it would be very easy, and will be very easy, I'm sure. There will be times when going down the negative path of, especially as things unfolded, there was a lot of chance to continue to be negative. But I realized that I've got to choose the more positive, more inspired path, even as challenging as that may be. Had I known how many phases there would have been, I would have been like more hesitant probably. Because if somebody had said, and guess what? It's not only going to be the cancer, it'll also be blah, 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 blah. But luckily, the Spirit didn't reveal that. It's kind of one step at a time, one chapter at a time. So luckily, it's been a happy ending. So.
Yeah, thank God. Well, I actually think we should take a step back. You, of course, have shared HeartMath with us here in the south of France at one of our events called GLAY, the Global Luminary Activation Experience, which we loved. But, you know, we're reaching thousands of people who may not be aware of what HeartMath is. And because you were one of the original founders, why don't you just give us an overview, short overview, about what is HeartMath and why are so many of us fans of these amazing tools that help us and our patients?
Awesome. So HeartMath is a system of scientifically validated tools and techniques that are designed at the first level to help us neutralize, prevent, and recover from stress so that we can have more optimal health, perform better in whatever our work or personal life pursuits are, improve our relationships, have a better life, more in line with our hearts and our soul and our spirit. And so it's a system. And one of the most attractive aspects of it is the very robust scientific research that HeartMath began in the early 90s, resulting in thousands of studies, 300 of which are peer-reviewed studies that have been published in journals all over the world. And so when people encounter HeartMath and they look at just how solid it is on the research level, it gives a lot more credibility to whatever else that they're going to learn. Then on top of that, the techniques themselves are pretty simple to learn. They're not hard and super complex. You don't have to spend hours meditating or change your lifestyle or change your belief system. Well, actually change some of your self-limiting beliefs would be a good idea, of course. So it's practical tools. And the third key element is there's this cool biofeedback, actually 3 different versions that HeartMath created over the last 20 years, so that you can be doing your meditation, practicing HeartMath techniques, or just monitoring your energy through a day and watch on the screen of your smartphone or on your computer screen, however you get it, and not only learn about your system and how it's responding to life, but learn how to train it to a higher, more coherent, more of a flow state. So between the scientific research, the practical tools and techniques that you can apply in the middle of stress, as well as to prevent or recover from it, and then the biofeedback, it's a pretty tight package and very relevant to just about anybody. You know, you can be a teenager with test anxiety. You can be a startup entrepreneur that's got business pressures and overwhelm, and how do I relate to my customers? And you could be a single mom, and you could be a gang in suits, meaning CEOs. You know, you could be anywhere on the spectrum, and have some benefit from this combination of tools and techniques and feedback.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that. I think the thing that obviously brought us into connection is our love of music, song, and in your case, a long-running history in musical theater. So you happen to have a role in a stage play, a musical theater show called The Fantasticks, which was the longest running musical of all time, right?
That's right.
So what was that like? I mean, you mentioned that, being in the limelight was a huge part of that, and then you went off to, co-found this company out in California. What was it like to be a superstar for so long and in the public's eye?
It was fun until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And when you say superstar, thank you for the elevation. I mean, the fact that most of your audience wouldn't have heard of me for that part of my career means I wasn't really a superstar in the real sense of the word. But yeah, I was getting recognized in restaurants and on subways. And one time I was on vacation in California and just landed in San Francisco Airport, and somebody stops me on the jetway. Says, "You're Bruce Cryer. Just saw you in the Fantasticks. Wow, amazing! Thank you so much." I thought, whoa, that's kind of like certain fame going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was fun. As you know, I was not a theater kid. I was not one of those kids who like always dreamed of being on stage. Not at all. It was like I kind of enjoyed theater, but not as anything special for me. And I fell into it and found that I was pretty good at it and fell into getting a role in the Fantastic. And when I say fell in, I mean obviously I had trained. I was skilled. I had some obvious talent that they recognized. So I stayed in the show for 800 performances, which is a lot. And when you're doing it 8 times a week, that's 100 weeks.
Yeah.
And so it was about 2 years, 2 years worth of shows. Luckily, it was a show that is so charming and so sweet, and the music is so memorable, and there's a cleverness to the show that makes it very timeless. So people see it even today, and it was written like in 1960, as like it always works because it's not about the 60s and it's not about today. It's about just kind of people and love and mystery and excitement and romance and loss and heartbreak and then love again. And because I got to play the boy, and it was a show about a boy and a girl, and the boy gets the girl at the end of the first act, and then he decides, nah, I think there's other fish in the sea, and he runs off to see the world. And then he gets broken and beaten and kind of shot down by life. And then she's all disappointed for some other reason. And then they get back together at the end in this completely charming. If I were to think of the song where that all happens at the very end of the show, I would start choking up again because it is such a tender moment of two people that have been broken by life realizing it was all about you all along. Yes, it's so sweet. So I got to do that. So it's one thing if it was a role where it was boring and no redeeming message and nothing memorable about it, but it was highly memorable. And so I felt extremely lucky. And I think my heart developed a lot in that show because to find the energy of inspiration night after frickin' night after frickin' night was not easy. As delightful a show as it was, it's still the same show. You couldn't change one word. You couldn't change one movement. They believed it was perfect, kind of the way it was, and you had to stick with it. So you had to become creative in a fairly narrow window. But luckily, there was a lot to have fun with. So I learned a lot, and I learned to appreciate, even when something gets boring or starts to feel old, how do I appreciate deeper tonight? This audience is here for the first time. They don't care that I've done it 642 times. They want it to be like opening night. So why wouldn't I want to give that to them so they can walk home feeling, wow, that was such an amazing night. So I learned a lot about how to love people and appreciate what I have been given. And those lessons were ones that became even more important later in life.
Well, you did have the great fortune of being able to kind of look at your role differently. I didn't have that fortune. When I was doing the news for Discovery Channel, every single day by the second year was starting to feel like way too boring. There was only so much creativity I could bring to the health news. And because I didn't have a live audience, it sounds like you being able to really appreciate that live audience I think I'm better able to do it now, to recognize that even through cyberspace, there is that audience that's actually listening. But I don't actually regret having left TV news. It was a great transition. And it sounds like for you as well, you're now bringing all of that creativity and your former career as well as your time at HeartMath to what you're doing now. In particular, helping people learn how creativity is a part of, or could be a part of our healing journey. So tell me a little bit about how you're looking at creativity and how you're teaching it.
Well, I had this insight in the aftermath of all that health stuff that my own creative light, my own creative juice was way low. Not just because of the health stuff, but before that, it was low already. And as I pondered that over the last several years and had started singing again, and after the hip surgery found I could actually dance again, which amazed me and completely thrilled me. Wow, I can dance again, amazing. The creative juices were really starting to flow, and it's like the great expression, once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't put her back in. And I definitely felt that way. And so in pondering more about the creative process, and people started referring to me as, oh, you're like a Renaissance man. You've come back from serious health issues, plus you're all these creative sides to you that some people didn't even know I had. I was pondering all of that and realizing, every human being is designed with the power to create life. When you really think about that, that's like miraculous. I mean, on the one hand, yes, it's called survival of the species, but it's still incredible that we have the power to create another life. Whether we create one or not isn't the point. The point is that energy of creation is embedded in our genes, in our DNA, in every part of us. And it can express in all kinds of creative, artistic ways, and it can also express in making our life better through better relationship skills and solving customer problems in our business. So creativity has many ways that it can express. So kind of my passion now has been to understand that, number one, I had a lot of things in my favor. I had two parents who had kind of their day jobs. My mom was a school teacher teaching home economics. My father was an insurance executive, but they were really super artistic, creative people. So they supported anything I wanted to do in that regard. So never did I have the clamp down or shut down or don't be doing that. I could feel my dad when I became an actor having this, like, two sides of him. The actuarial side was like, son, you've picked the most insecure profession imaginable. What are you thinking? On the other hand, God, I love you in the Fantasticks. I want to come again tomorrow night. So he mostly wanted to support his son's love for what I was doing, but he still had this other side too. So anyhow, I think for me, it's to help people awaken whatever their life experience has been. Many of us didn't have the good fortune that I had of being so encouraged. They were shut down and shot down. And then work did the same. Work said, Andrea, you're great with the news, but let the marketing people do their job. Don't you be getting all these ideas about marketing, or whatever we have been told. And so once again, that creative urge is shut down. And so you look at the world today and how serious many global issues are. We clearly need a new level of creativity to solve these, let alone just the day-to-day challenges of the challenge to pay rent, the challenge to raise our child if we're single mom or single dad. So there's a need to awaken this creative energy that I'm saying. We all have it, guys.
Right.
And Renaissance human is the name I've given to it.
Yeah.
But that's not about some new elite of the creative people. It's more like, no, guys, we're all this way. We all give birth to new parts of ourselves throughout our life. In some cases, that's artistic talents. In other cases, it's the ability to learn language. In other cases, it's the ability to be a fantastic customer service person. We birth new parts of ourselves. We're always going through new renaissance, which is what the literal meaning is, of course. So that's my passion, and to awaken that energy and that spirit and make that practical in people's lives.
Wonderful. Well, Bruce, I'm so grateful once again that you and I are now connected and we're sharing our creativity and our love for heart coherence and helping people really feel empowered. And it's lovely that you are one of our contributing authors in this new book, The Top 10 Traits of Highly Resilient People. And I know now that you are offering guided meditations. People can buy your music online. And if you'd like to be coached or mentored by Bruce, you can check him out. So where should people check you out for Renaissance Human and all other things Bruce Cryer?
So my two websites, brucecrier.com is the main site. There's another site called renaissancehuman.co, renaissancehuman.co. You mentioned I have guided meditations. It's called Sonic Sanctuaries. I have this album called Renaissance Human. That's on Spotify. It's on iTunes. So if you look up my name, there's two things, and you'll find it. So I encourage people to check it out. There's some fun, useful stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, my friend. I hope to be seeing you and collaborating with you more in 2020. But first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for continuing to do what you do and shining on and on and on.
Well, thank you, Andrea, and back at you. I mean, you are such a light, and you have the talents expressed in so many wonderful, marvelous ways, and it's a thrill to have not only gotten to know you over the last several months, but of now starting to work together and collaborating in meaningful ways like your book. I'm thrilled to be one of the authors, so I look forward to much more in the months and years ahead.
Wonderful. All right, my friends, there you have it. Check out the book, check out Bruce's chapter, and you can find out even more about the other contributing authors. Until we meet again, remember that you are a gift to the world. So share your presence with passion. Much love.